So next presenter is Laura Masterson. I think we're very fortunate to have Laura. She is certainly a leader in community-supported agriculture, and if you've been up to Lusher Farm and the Lake Oswego Farmers Market, you've seen some of Laura's work. Also, Laura is on the Oregon Board of Agriculture and has been on the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board as well. So Laura, and also I just found this out, you're on Martha Stewart's website. And Martha quotes Laura's dream of an urban farm to produce food grown in the city for people who live there. So that we want to hear all about that, Laura, so thank you so much.
All right, hi, thanks for having me. I don't usually lead with Martha Stewart, but it's always good for a laugh. I really appreciate you guys having me today, and I really appreciate the work the Hamlet has done to be thinking about how to protect and preserve farmland in the region. I think Hannah did a great job of sort of setting the stage, national, regional, local, and I'm going to talk a little bit, I'm going to talk very local about kind of what we're doing in the Hamlet, but also just reiterate some of the stuff that she mentioned that's going on at the state level that can really play into this. So I started farming 22 years ago. I did not grow up on a farm. I moved to Oregon to go to college and just started gardening, loved it, started landscaping, loved it, but at some point really felt like my calling was to grow food for people. I loved the beautiful flower gardens that I was building, but food was just so important to me. I started looking around for how could I do that? I think without growing up on a farm, without having access to farmland, it was really challenging, but I heard about this thing called community-supported agriculture where you could bring some parts of the community together, get them to buy in, support you, and start at any scale. So I started really small on my double lot in Southeast Portland, and I talked a dozen of my friends into joining the farm with me, and they pitched in some cash in the beginning of the season, and I grew a big garden, basically. So that was my first year farming. Since then, fast forward 2 decades, I am managing 50 acres of organic farmland, and that is Lusher Farm and also some property I have down by Dayton. So in what it took to get there, I think was I farmed lots of different little properties all over the, not just the metro region, but up into Clark County and down into Yamhill, building slowly my membership base for the CSA and also my expertise in terms of, my technical skills for farming. So in 2005, we applied with the city of Lake Oswego to run their newly it wasn't even a CSA at that point, it was just an idea. So we applied and they accepted our application, and so we have been running the Lusher Farm CSA program since 2005. Has everybody been to Lusher? Nodding, waving, okay, good. I'm always amazed at how many groups I talk to in Lake Oswego and surrounding areas who still haven't been there, don't know about it, but I'm not surprised that all of you guys do. The community-supported agriculture is one of many programs at Lusher. Well, I guess I should back up a little bit and say most people probably know the history too, but the city of Lake Oswego purchased Lusher Farm in the early 90s, and the property has been managed by their Parks and Recreation Department since then, slowly kind of building various programs. So at this point, the Clackamas Garden is there. There's all sorts of children's programming, camps and classes that are there. There's a community garden program, which I always say is the DIY version of the farm farming, right? That's where you get a plot and you do it yourself. And then there's our program, the program that we run, which is called Community Supported Agriculture, where we do it for you. So we have 12 acres that we manage at Lusher Farm, and we grow all kinds of organic herbs and vegetables there, and we seed it, we plant it, we weed it, we irrigate it, we grow it, and then the people who join the farm get a box of food once a week through the summertime and then twice a month in the wintertime. So that's kind of the program that I manage at Lusher Farm, and if you want to know more about that, we have some brochures over there. I have to do my little pitch. If you'd like to join us and get local vegetables, we're signing up folks now for our summer season. But I think the things today that I want to focus more on are, my experience farming on the has always been at the urban fringe. So I really came to see fairly quickly, trying to piece together different, like find farmland, piece it together, lease from people, see the pressure of development on kind of the whole urban fringe, whether it was Washington County out east of the urban growth boundary in Multnomah or Clackamas County. Those challenges became very apparent to me very quickly, and I started working, thinking about, and eventually that's what brought me to the Board of Ag, was sort of my interest in really farmland protection. How do we do this better? How do we not keep pushing farmers further and further out? We have this amazing land use protection, but it's not totally working. I grew up in California, so I know it's working better than some other places. But it's really still a train wreck in slow motion, which I think, now people are really recognizing. The urban growth boundaries are only going in one direction. They're only moving out. Farmland is only getting smaller, right? I think there's one town in Oregon that's ever retracted their urban growth boundary, but basically it's marching out, it's taking over farmland, and they're not making any more of it. So I know that's why a lot of you are here thinking about the hamlet. How do we do this better? I just want to give a shout out to Hannah and some of the things that she mentioned at the legislature right now. There is a bill for the Oregon Ag Heritage Program, and that is, I think, Matt's going to talk more about this later this morning, but easements are really a potential tool to preserve farmland in places where the urban growth boundaries, it's an additional way, in addition to the urban growth boundaries and the land use protection. I think easements have a real opportunity. Oregon has been returning back federal funds. Federal matching funds go to all the other states in the country, and Oregon, because we haven't had a state match for that program, has just said, no, we don't want any money to preserve farmland. I think with the Oregon Ag Heritage Program, and if you want to call your legislator and tell them to support it, we would have a state match that then could be used to leverage that federal money, bring more of that into Oregon, or bring some of that into Oregon, and use it to protect, whether it's farmland in the hamlet or some other farmland that's been identified as really important high-value land. So that Oregon Ag Heritage Program is really relevant right now in this legislative cycle as a way to start funding this good work that we want to do. All right, so back to the hamlet. I think Lusher Farm is really a great example of what can happen on the edges of urban growth, and how we can integrate farms into how we can maintain and preserve farms going forward, sort of with and adjacent to urban and suburban development. I love the idea of farmland as infrastructure. I'd never really heard that, but it makes so much sense. How do we think of that as a key piece of what we want? We across the region, we think about parks as infrastructure that are really important as we build out the urban spaces. And so farms, to me, are an obvious part of that. I would love to see the hamlet in maybe a way that sort of the Fruit Loop in Hood River works, right? You could have a bunch of different farms doing different things sort of tied together in a way that people could come to and participate in, whether it's farm stands or pumpkin patch or events at farms. I think there's a big opportunity to really help maintain that connection that so many urban Oregonians don't have to food and farming. So if you are someone in the hamlet who is interested in building an agricultural endeavor on your property, I think there's certainly lots more technical expertise and infrastructure and programs available than there were 20 years ago when I started farming. So I'll run through a little bit of that. Most people know about the Osu Extension programs that are out there. So they have a whole small farms program. They do everything from technical expertise, whether you want to know about your soil, your slope, your aspect, your irrigation, and then all the way on to marketing, whether it's food or fiber, whatever you want to do. So I think Extension is really a huge, amazing resource that people can reach out to. One of the other places to look for information is the Oregon Department of Agriculture. So when I first joined the board 8 years ago, and I just finished my term, by the way, but when I joined the board 8 years ago, there wasn't a lot at ODA for small farms, but that's really changed, and there's a lot of resources there now, so that's some place to reach out to. Tom Salzer is here from the Clackamas Soil and Water Conservation District. That's another group that really has a ton of technical information, both in terms of cost share to help with more ecological farming practices, but also just expertise in how do we do better, more sustainable farming, and technical information in terms of the kinds of easement programs as well and what they have to offer. So I think the other resource that I would mention is Oregon iFarm. Has anybody heard of that? It's a land link program that's run by Friends of Family Farmers, and basically what it does, it's kind of a matchmaking little, people laugh and call it sort of a dating service, right? But we often have these two groups of people. One is young farmers who don't have access to land, and the other is people who own land but maybe don't want to farm it or aren't interested in farming it or have kind of retired from farming. And so the iFarm is a web-based linking service that basically tries to match people. If you have land and you're looking for someone maybe to farm it, you can go there and post your property with kind of what you're looking for and what you have to offer, and then people who are interested, beginning farmers or new farmers or people who are looking to expand their operations can find you there, and then possibly, ideally, people can get hooked up in that way. So I think that's also a great resource. Yeah, I think I guess what I would end on is just I know a little bit about what's happening in the hamlet, and I'm really excited about Lusher being a part of a larger kind of agricultural vision that really integrates environmental sustainability, all the ecosystem services that farming and agriculture has to offer. Protected natural areas, but also just how do we build that, and then also within that ecosystem create opportunities for kids of all ages, all people, to really get out in nature, enjoy, eat, experience nature and agriculture in a way that they can get their hands dirty and really have fun. So I look forward to chatting with people. I'm happy to answer questions and chat with people after about, what role potentially the CSA and Lusher has to play in that, and how it can be sort of more integrated into the hamlet.
you.